This is the
Five Starr
Podcast.
Let me talk to you. Hi. What do you guys want to talk about? This is such good shit. Thanks, guys. Back to you.
I want to start the show with a cold open because this topic pertains to SmackDown. I've been bouncing back and forth with how I wanted to handle this. You know, right before I sat down to record, I actually went back to see the last time I even reviewed an episode of SmackDown on the channel. Do you know how long it's been? We're going all the way back to April 26th of this year. Which for those of you that might not remember, because it's been so insignificant since that point, that was like night one of the WWE draft. That is how long it's been since we've even touched SmackDown on the channel. And as is the case with a lot of those shows, I would DVR them on Friday. I would watch bits and pieces of the show in fast forward mode. Then I would put together some half-assed review where I basically skipped like 50% of the show and only talked about the stuff that I cared about, which wasn't a whole lot to begin with. And now it's become an issue where we got the Retro WWF pay-per-views, WWE's plunking out all these monthly premium live specials on the network, the NXT takeovers are starting to become a thing with the Retro series. I really don't have the drive to do 4 segments on a podcast anymore. The shows will be too long. It'll take forever to edit. I just don't have that kind of time anymore. A couple years ago, the story was a lot different, but not at this point in time. And I've been so busy over the last month. When I actually tried to watch SmackDown in its entirety yesterday morning, which would have been Saturday, it was like I was watching in a foreign language, dude. I had no idea what was going on. The only thing I had any remote interest in was whatever they were doing with the bloodline. I saw the big angle where the Samoans gave Plumpy Paul the Shield powerbomb through the announce table. I noted that Paulie looked like he was either on the brink of popping like a balloon or just outright having a heart attack. My God, he looks horrible. And I also jotted down how happy I am that Jacob Fatu finally got his big break in WWE. Been a long time coming for him. I remember watching him as far back as when we were still doing the MLW reviews on the channel. The minute I saw him, I was like, WWE needs to sign that guy pronto. And I know he had some legal troubles he ran into that sort of prevented management from wanting to bring him in. But the guy's got that money look. And it's perfect timing with what they've been doing, bringing in Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa as part of Solo's henchmen. You know, Jacob Fatu fits right in with the pack. So they killed Paul Heyman, essentially. That'll basically write him out of the picture until Roman presumably comes back and does the big match with Solo, which I assume is the direction they're going. And then maybe it evolves into some kind of War Games deal where you do Solo's bloodline versus Roman's bloodline. Whoever would be in Roman's corner. Maybe the Usos and somebody else. How about good old Sami Zayn? He probably wouldn't mind getting Usi for one night. Granted, he'd end up be doing like NWO black and white versus NWO black and red things, and it's probably not the greatest throwback if you're a WCW fan. Even I never really understood what the hell was going on with all that stuff. And I watched it live. Nonsensical warfare faction. I think the black and red crew were supposed to be baby faces. Kevin Nash was the leader of the pack. None of it made any sense. The point is, we're just going to run into this problem too frequently where the SmackDown reviews are going to be inconsistent on the channel. Overall, I just really don't care a lot about the ongoing storylines to justify even doing full-length reviews at this point. I mean, I think in most, I would consider doing like 5-minute recaps of anything involving the Bloodline and or Cody Rhodes. Maybe I would gloss over a couple matches if they were worth discussing, but I just don't see myself keeping the SmackDown reports as an ongoing thing. I'll still do the premium live specials. I'll talk about the matches in detail. But as far as the week-to-week coverage of the TV shows, it's just not going to happen. So that's where I'm at. Next week is the go-home show to Money in the Bank, so I wouldn't even do a SmackDown report anyway. Then a week or two after that, WWF's got the Second in Your House special, which we are covering as part of the Retro Raw series, because I promised I'd do those. So yeah, that's my final stamp on the SmackDown situation. It'll free up more time for me to discuss the retro stuff. And to spend more time ranting about Raw as well, which we all know I love doing. So let's get going on Raw. Speak of the handsome devil. The show is fucking horrible, people. I just want to put that out there in the open so we can confirm the obvious. This program is just the absolute worst. I lose brain cells every time I watch it. It never ceases to fail. I looked back at that King of the Ring review we did the other week. In hindsight, I probably wasn't harsh enough on it. That pay-per-view was so unbelievably bad, people. You have no idea. And here we are in the thick of the summer of 95. They're about to have another one of their big fours in a month with SummerSlam. Business is totally in the shitter. Their world champion is a disaster. They have such minimal star power. Live events and pay-per-view buys are sinking month by month. The TV shows are fucking atrocious. And one thing we really haven't discussed in great detail, I know we're not covering the Monday Night Wars at the moment, but it is topical. In about 2 months from this point, WCW is about to launch their pilot episode for Monday Nitro. And WWF's opposition is about to take off in the ratings from there. I mean, it took until mid-96 for them to actually start beating Raw in the ratings. But things are about to get a whole lot worse for Vince in the next year or two. These people have no clue what they're doing. As clearly demonstrated by this week's episode. I think Lawler was intentionally trying to put himself out of his own misery. He's out there at ringside legitimately downing an entire bottle of Scope mouthwash. Yeah, apparently no one clued him into the fact that you are supposed to rinse with the fucking mouthwash, not drink it. Again, though, he could have been purposefully trying to put himself into a coma. Lawler's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing. So we opened with the 1-2-3 Kid versus Mike Bell. The story of the entire show was Vince taking jabs at Lawler's smelly breath. You'll be shocked to hear the joke wore thin rather quickly. I wrote down pretty much nothing else about the match aside from a fine professional wrestling match in the middle of the worst period in WWF history. Who could possibly care? The Kid hit a spin heel kick and then followed it up with a jackknife cradle for the 3. By 1995 standards, it was the third best match of the year. And the match went maybe 3 minutes, if we were lucky. There was at least a solid 5 minutes of redeemable content this week, if you can actually believe that. It was the music video premiere for Double J's newest single, With My Baby Tonight, which, for those of you wondering, yes, it was an original Jim Johnson composition. I cannot confirm how legit the other musicians were. We all know Jarrett was clearly lip-syncing the whole time. The 3 accompaniment girls that did the background vocals, they could have been legit. I actually did hear a rumor that it was Road Dogg that sang and recorded the actual song. And I know they end up using that as a story mechanism to split those two off eventually. I think that was real, though. Brian Armstrong actually sang the lyrics to this thing and recorded it in studio. So, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually link the video down below in the comment section so you can click it and see for yourself. I don't want to get a copyright strike on YouTube if I actually try to play bits and pieces of it here on the podcast. I'm not monetized, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But just to avoid any channel strikes, I'm going to play it safe. I watched the whole thing in its entirety. Yes, it was very hokey, but I actually kind of liked it. Especially because I know where it's all going. The idea that Jarrett took all the credit for this in storyline, despite the fact that we know it wasn't him singing, kind of makes the whole thing that much better. The roadie actually has talent. We knew it all along. And it's actually a pretty cool song. And I'm certainly not somebody that goes out of my way to listen to country. But the whole thing, as silly as it was silly in a good way. I especially like the venue sign that read, Manny's Car Wash. Sounds like the perfect location for Jarrett to debut his newest album single. What would be a step below that? Your cousin's weed-infested basement? They're getting these shots of the young female in the crowd. She had that conventional starstruck expression, admiring Jarrett for his superstardom. That's where I noted she was one of 7 drunken people in the crowd listening. Again, I'm not going to break the whole thing down in its entirety. Just go click the link and listen to it for yourself. He is definitely not the second coming of Garth Brooks, as Lawler tried to claim. But I don't know, I'd say he was better than Taylor Swift. So then we immediately dive back into the cesspool. Spark Plug Bob Holly versus the Brooklyn Brawler. They wrestle for similar amount of time as the 1-2-3 Kid Mike Bell match. maybe 3 minutes. Could have been 4. It was boring. Brawler got like a minute of heat on Holly before he got cut off. And then Holly came off the top of the crossbody for the 3. Again, I would like to remind you all, WCW is about to launch their counter program to WWF's flagship program in 2 months' time. And WWF is aiming to combat this problem by trotting out a Sparky plug match in the middle of Raw. And we wonder why they lost 83 consecutive weeks to Nitro in the ratings. You could honestly use Bob Holly as the graphic cover for that novel. 83 weeks. The real story. Why Nitro beat Raw in the ratings. And the subtitle just reads, Spark Plug Bob Holly. And all the fans immediately go, oh yeah, well, that kind of makes sense. Or maybe we could credit that to them showing highlight footage of Adam Bomb versus the Hog Farmer, where the payoff was Henry O'Godwin dumping a bucket of slop on Bomb's head. Yeah, for the life of me, I just can't fathom it. How in the world was WWF struggling so much during this period? I don't have any evidence. I mean, an Adam Bomb Hog Farmer match that ends in a double countout? My God, that's a fucking dynamite feud in the making right there. Who wouldn't want to see that? No. I probably should have used a different euphemism than dynamite. It certainly wasn't going to turn the company around. Speaking of the Hog Farmer and his slop, O'Godwin wrestled Barry Horowitz in a very sloppy match that wasn't good at all. The story now with Barry Horowitz is that he's wrestled so many matches for the WWF by this period, Vince has finally caught on to the fact that he's never won a match. So now he has to keep bringing it up every 30 seconds. To the point where you absolutely know it's going somewhere in storyline. Which it does. I think we've alluded to it a couple of times with the Body Donna stuff. So yeah, a match sucked. O'Godwin eventually won with the slob drop, which I cannot believe I actually said out loud. But that was in fact his actual finish. It was basically a Scorpion Death Drop, the reverse DDT. But they called it the Slop Drop. It's like the thing we talk about with all these retro NXTs, where everybody had to have a dumb, quirky name for their finish. He calls it, That's a Wrap. Or he calls that the Bulldozer. Well, here in the year 1995, a reverse DDT was simply called the Slop Drop. I hate this show. Almost as much as I hated the feature match for the week. My favorite part of the entire segment was during the altercation with Bam Bam Bigelow and Henry O'Godwin in the aisleway. It's supposed to be Bam Bam versus Psycho Sid. But the Hog Farmer is blocking Bam Bam's path to the ring. So Vince goes, and I quote, "Come on now. We want to see the match with Sid." To which every rational-minded person screamed, "No, we do not." not a living soul, not named Vincent K. McMahon, was clamoring for Bam Bam Bigelow versus Psycho fucking Sid. It was a blatant lie. So Bam Bam and Godwin proceed to get into a 10-second slugfest. More accurately, I guess you would call it a slop fest. Am I right? Fuck you, you laughed. And I do mean a 10-second slugfest. They threw windmill punches at each other. And then they stopped. Then they both just meandered past each other. And then the match just proceeded like normal. So what the fuck was the point of the aisleway fight? So they have the match. It's bad. During the moment Sid was selling, it was slapstick level bad. There were almost 2 back-to-back spots here that I just sat back and facepalmed the moment I saw them. Coming back from commercial, I saw Sid take an electric chair bump from Bam Bam where he landed directly on his tailbone. And then about a minute later, he gave Bam Bam one of the worst chokeslams I've ever seen. I actually had to watch it back to make sure that was what he was attempting to do. Pretty sure he was going for a chokeslam. And then the turning point happens when Bam Bam goes up for a diving headbutt, but outruns the pig farmer to shove Bigelow off the top. Bigelow takes a bump and lands directly on his fucking face. And then Sid crawls over and covers him with one arm for the pin. My notes for the segment conclude with as follows, all in caps. Why the hell is Henry O'Godwin getting the Savio Vega push? Seriously. It is a carbon copy case where they're taking a guy who's barely been on the show in months, and for no reason at all, they are now involving him with all the top stars and pushing him as a main event heel. The fucking hog farmer. I don't even recall the last thing he was involved with on TV. All of a sudden, I tune into Raw one week. He's beating up Adam Bomb on Superstars and leaving him for dead. And then he's costing a semi-top babyface a match with a top heel faction? Allegedly aligning himself with said top heel faction for no fucking reason. Now I'm supposed to buy him as a credible threat. The guy whose gimmick is that he rolls around in pig shit for a living. Did I mention how much I hate this program? Yet as bad as that was, it was still not as terrible as the main event segment. The main event for Raw this week, as if the show couldn't fall any deeper off the map. We had the official in-ring debut of Waylon Mercy. Hell yeah. What a great way to end this horror show of a program. Fuck it, let's send Danny Spivey out to wrestle for 5 minutes. That'll get the people on their feet. Well, in fact, it may have. It got them right on their feet, headed for the nearest exit door. Poor Jeff Hardy. He had the extreme displeasure of getting fed to this walking tree stump. This might have been the match that earned the Hardys a full-time contract in a couple years. Vince took pity having seen Jeff have to work with Waylon Mercy. It was a sympathy signing. God, Jeff's out there bumping his ass off, working overtime to try to sell for this guy's lumbering offense. I mean, to be completely fair, Spivey did not do anything visually horrific. It was just like watching a match in reverse speed. Or half speed. It was the longest 5-minute squash of all time. Mercy won with something. I think the sleeper hold. And then he shook the ref's hand afterwards. Hold on. I'm curious now. How many matches did Waylon Mercy have in the WWF before they scrapped the gimmick? It had to have been less than 5. Hang on a sec. Bear with me. I'm looking it up. Let's see. Scrolling down. According to the Pro Fight Internet Wrestling Database, it appears that he wrestled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 18 matches, including house shows and live events. So remove those, we're basically looking at less than 10. Apparently his final match is with Diesel on the September 26 Superstars taping. It reads, Waylon Mercy defeats CO Diesel. What does CO mean? I assume count out? Yeah, I guess that would make sense because the other results say pin and sub. Sub would mean submission, I guess. So yeah, CO is the abbreviation for count out. Great. So he beats Diesel in his last match with the company. Sounds about right. Oh yeah, just looking at all these great upcoming squashes we'll be seeing soon. Can't wait to see him wrestle Doink on Raw in about a month. That sounds like a grand fucking jolly old time. Not as grand and jolly as the 2 patients that were waiting in the dentist's office for Isaac Yankem. DDS. Damn. If only AEW could have gotten Glenn on board to shoot an angle with Britt Baker, that would have been money. Especially when Britt was actually semi-over as a heel. She could have done skits saying that she was certified in dentistry and that her mentor was Isaac Yankem. There you go. I just rewrote Britt Baker's entire backstory in 3 seconds. You'll thank me later, Tony. So, yeah, the skit with Lawler pestering the 2 actors in the waiting area. First off, let's state the obvious. The acting was beyond wretched. But I did laugh when Lawler took the National Geographic edition and told the young boy to find a map of Canada. Because that's where Brett's from. And he says it should have been wiped from the map entirely. What made this segment great is that Lawler's sitting there talking about all this wrestling history. And you got these 2 dorky-looking kids sitting beside him. The young boy looked completely disinterested. The girl, I don't know if it was supposed to be the older sister or perhaps the auntie. She looked totally spaced out. She had no fucking idea what Lawler was talking about. She's just staring at Lawler the whole time, mouth agape, completely out to lunch. And the payoff is Glenn coming out of his office and then looking down with his fucked up teeth, going, "Next." Then he does the menacing laugh. And, yeah, this gimmick indeed sucked. It's as bad as we all remember it being. I say it's still only slightly better than fake Diesel. But yeah, I got nothing else to add. Go watch the Jeff Jarrett music video. It is the only thing worth checking out on this entire program. Nothing else is even remotely worth torturing yourself with. I do the watching here so you don't have to. Spare yourself the experience of having to suffer through a Dan Spivey match. Take it at my word. It was no good. So now we'll go ahead and turn the page from one wacky world of wrestling characters to a completely different set of wacky wrestling characters. At least these wacky personas were over with the audience. So they had that going for them. NXT. Now, we had a few things of note that happened this week. It is right before the holiday, so we probably shouldn't expect a bunch of big story angles to happen. But we've had a few names either show up or make their returns in the last couple of weeks. The big return last week obviously being Enzo Amore. His leg is now, well, it's definitely fixed. Although he's apparently still not medically cleared to get back in the ring yet. So he's still playing cheerleader for Big Cass while he does all the work. But at least he got to do his catchphrase. And the people enjoyed that. We also had Cass calling Sylvester LaFour Pepe Le Pew, which I thought was kind of funny. And then he said that he was about to get disfigured, disrespected, and dismissed. How you doing? And that is in fact what promptly happened. The French fuckwits came out. LaFour said a few things that may or may have not been broken English. I really couldn't tell. His accent is incredibly thick. And then Cass beat him up, hit him with the sit-out power slam followed by an Empire elbow, and he pinned him in about 15 seconds. So thanks for coming, Legionnaires. I actually looked this up after the match because I was curious. I remembered absolutely nothing about this tag team. Here is what I found regarding the pairing of Sylvester LaFour and Marcus Louis. LaFour apparently stuck around with the company for another couple of years before he was unceremoniously released. He worked in TNA in 2016 under the ring name Basil Baraka, which is a significantly dumber name than Sylvester LaFour. And supposedly he's been doing indie dates since that point. Although he did apparently make a cameo during the SmackDown taping in France right before the Backlash special, which I do not remember. Maybe I didn't watch that episode. I guess he was a security plant during a Randy Orton, Kevin Owens Bloodline segment. As for Marcus Louis, he too was also released from WWE in 2016. And he followed LaFour to TNA where he wrestled under the name Baron Dax. And that is apparently the last thing he ever did as it pertains to wrestling. I guess he's been doing Walmart greetings since. Or perhaps welding. Who knows? So yeah, these guys were complete dorks. Just totally buried in this segment like absolute job guys. And I presume nothing changes until the time they get released from their contracts. So then we follow that with one of those classic NXT interviews where Devin is given a completely generic artificial question to relay to Adrian Neville. What does the future hold for the NXT champion? Stated with about that level of enthusiasm. And then Neville has to give some completely rehearsed answer that sounds totally inauthentic. His response was, I respect RVD. I admired him growing up, and I'm glad to have gotten the chance to share the ring with him. And that was about all he could get out before he got interrupted by Tyler Breeze. And those two had some more scripted back and forth banter until Neville challenged Breeze to a match. And then Breeze informed us that he suffered a career-threatening injury during a model shoot, at which point he showed his index finger, which was in a splint. So I guess we'll have to wait until a later time to see that Neville versus Breeze singles match that we're dying to see. This was dumb. God, and Devin's standing there the whole time, essentially smirking through the whole thing. Like, no one could have smartened her up beforehand. Tell her to play it straight. Just made the whole thing come off so low rent. They should have retaped that. We then had Charlotte and Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch and Bayley. Indeed. They put all four of the horsewomen together in one segment and had them wrestle. Because that's the same thing they did with Tully, Arn, Ole, and Flair back in 1985, right? They had them all wrestle one another before they referred to them as the Four Horsemen and put them together in a faction. Oh wait, that's right, that never happened. And yes, Becky is still out there in her all-green Lucky Charm attire. She thankfully dropped the Irish jig this week. But, well, that little hug exchange she gave to Bayley in the side screen beforehand. Very uncanny. This did not help to alleviate everything we saw from her the previous week in her debut. So they had this match. It's not very good. There was a horrible miscue in this match where Bayley pulled Sasha off the apron, and she goes to raise her fist in the air like she's about to punch Sasha directly in the head. But of course, Charlotte's out of position to cut her off because she sucks. So Bayley has to stand there like a moron for 10 seconds while she's waiting for Charlotte to drop kick her in the back. And then Sasha's standing there with her hands up like, oh no, please don't hit me. Why the hell would you not edit that out? That looks so Bush League. I mean, I get they're green. It's developmental. You're not expecting them to be Bret Hart as workers, but like, come on. That just exposed everybody. You don't leave stuff like that in. So the heels are working over Bayley for a while. Eventually there's a miscue spot where Bayley shakes off Sasha. She accidentally bumps Charlotte. Becky runs wild with a very sloppy comeback for a few seconds. And, I don't remember what happened. All I wrote down is Charlotte wins with natural selection. And then for whatever reason, Charlotte and Sasha started arguing afterwards. Because they are catty bitches, you see. And then Bayley threw Sasha out of the ring because she was smack-talking Becky. This is seriously like reliving TNA all over again. How many fucking segments with all the girls did we see in TNA all those years where you can never decipher who are babyfaces and who are heels? Because they were all unlikable harpies that screamed and yelled at each other every week. Who the fuck was I supposed to cheer for at the end of this? The heels are arguing with each other over stuff. Meanwhile, you got the alleged babyface attacking the heel after the bell. And the other heel is on the floor basically not giving a shit. Nobody is likable in any of this. Is it that hard? I mean, we all know women secretly hate each other, but like, can you at least make it apparent so we know who to cheer for and who to boo? So yeah, I believe that was the very first segment where we saw all the horsewomen together as a group. And it sucked. Points for effort, though. And from there, we pitch back to Devin for more riveting line of questioning. She really got her thinking cap on for this one. Her question to Justin Gabriel, ahead of his match with Sami Zayn later in the program. Justin, what is your mindset headed into your match with Sami Zayn later on? By fucking God. What a thrilling question. It's almost as if we heard her ask that exact same question to Adrian Neville just a few seconds prior. It's almost as if she's a robot and has no free reign to ask or say whatever she wants. Because you see, the writers, the Hollywood script writers, they all know how to keep us glued to the TV. So then Tyson showed up and told Gabriel that he used to be relevant on the main roster, but now he's stuck down in NXT purgatory because his career has become inept. You think I'm kidding? That is pretty much what Kidd implied during this segment. So then Gabriel said he would beat Sami later in the night and prove that he still got that killer instinct. Spoiler alert, everybody. Justin Gabriel did not, in fact, have the killer instinct. He was, by all accounts, a geek. Don't you just love when the heels are proven right? So then we had an all-time horrible segment. This was just... I can't even begin to describe the level of hideous acting that went into this. This made your local high school play look like an audition for Hollywood. It was so bad. I actually watched it a second time just to try to convince myself that it wasn't that atrocious. I was proven wrong on a second go-around. It was still bad on second viewing. So Charlotte and Sasha are in the locker room. As always, they're given these horribly scripted lines to recite. Nothing they say sounds genuine. I mean, they're not even looking at each other for 50% of the goddamn segment. They're either looking off camera or down at the floor, trying to recite their lines. Their body language is completely unnatural. Because, you know, they're at these awkward angles where they're having to face the camera. Because, you know, Vince. And Sasha in particular, dude. I have been saying this for years. That this chick fucking sucks whenever she's given promo time. There has not been one promo she's ever cut in WWE that I would say was good. Anytime she's ever been given a live mic to speak, bad times. So naturally, Cocaine Tony's given her ample promo time in AEW. And look where that's gotten her. Even the AEW cocksucking diehards talk about how much her promo segments die a death. So she and Charlotte are having this fucking elementary level argument. Sounded like two 8-year-olds fighting on the playground. They're like, I don't want to be your partner anymore. We can still be friends. But we should probably go our separate ways. 'Cause I'm more popular than you are. And I can't be seen with you in public. 'Cause it'd be embarrassing. Again, you think I'm exaggerating. That was essentially the conversation they were having here. Charlotte does not want to be seen in public with Sasha because she's a loser. And that would destroy Charlotte's reputation, being associated with a loser. So Sasha is pretending to be mad. I wish I would have recorded the clip, but I didn't even think to do it. If you have the Peacock subscription, you've got to go out of your way to find this segment. It is all-time horrendously awful. But the point here is that Charlotte told Sasha to kick rocks. I presume this was supposed to be Sasha's face turn. Of course, nothing about her is babyface-like in quality, so I had no idea what was happening here. I mean, it just confirmed everything people have ever said about Sasha and her acting ability. It's really that bad, dude. It's not a hoax. She is ungodly terrible at this. It's remarkable. Like, I mean, it might be a stretch to call her a talentless hack. But my God. Over-fucking-rated. And people have finally opened their eyes. They still haven't realized how much Charlotte sucks. I've been beating that horse to death over how many years. People will soon come to realize it. And that's not to say Charlotte was any better in any of this, but Sasha, dude. She is so fucking rotten at this. I can't believe that she never learned how to sound natural on the microphone. No one ever taught her? That's insane. All those years she was with WWE. I'm not kidding. You've got to go find this clip and watch it. I mean, if you can dig it up on WWE's YouTube archives, it'll blow your mind. If they did multiple takes on this, and this was the best they could produce, dear God in heaven. I want to see those lost tapes and the outtakes. So then the Greeny Weenie wrestled Steve Cutler. He beat him in about a minute with a sidekick. And then he did a heat promo calling out Xavier Woods. He said that Woods is about to graduate with a doctorate degree, which I actually believe was true. Pretty sure Woods has a PhD in psychology or some type of clinical practice. And Parker said that Woods has what he wants. So he's coming for it. I presume he meant the piece of paper that had Woods' credentials on it. I guess that would count as hazardous waste. I don't know. I spent most of the segment looking at CJ Parker's shoulders. He had these I don't even know what the hell you'd call them. I mean, at first I thought it was just his veins, but then I looked harder. It looked like he had the scar tissue on both sides of his right and left shoulder. So weird. Looked like cat claws. And that brought us to the sit-down interview with Tyson Kidd and Renee Paquette. This is actually pretty great. I actually thought the show kind of turned around with this segment. Renee's asking him all these questions regarding his attitude since the loss to Adrian Neville at TakeOver in May. Tyson's giving these totally disingenuous answers, talking about how his wife's been there to support him through the last couple months. You know, he's been goaded into doing interviews and press scrums that his heart wasn't in. He shot down tag title opportunities because he really wasn't motivated. One of the best lines in this whole thing, this had me dying. Renee goes, "What do you make of the NXT fans calling you Natty's husband?" And Tyson just low-key responds, "Well, you know, those people are probably single and never had a girlfriend anyway, so they don't really understand what true love's all about." That was fucking awesome. I love that line. Well, you know, they're just basement dwellers, so obviously they never got a blowjob in their life. It was just so underhanded. I loved it. And, well, the interview kind of blows up here when Renee goes, "Tyson, rumor has it that you and Natty are having marital problems. Is that something you would like to discuss with me right now?" To which Tyson looks at her with a very disturbed glare, and he walks off. Rightfully so. The fuck kind of question was that? "Tyson, I heard you and your wife are having problems at home. Care to discuss and lay it all out for the world to hear right now?" What is this, fucking TMZ? Now see, this is where the leeway with questioning hits a wall. Getting a little too close to the fire with that one, Renee. If I were Tyson, I'd have followed it up by asking her, "Yeah, well, rumor has it your husband's a fucking lunatic that sticks forks in his eyelids. Care to comment?" So yeah, this is a great segment. I quite enjoyed this. The disingenuous babyface Tyson Kidd, it's actually a very underrated personality in NXT. Because it's not quite like Bo Dallas. They're definitely polar opposite personalities. Bo is just really over the top and delusional. Tyson, on the other hand, he's just off in his own world. He actually thinks he's in the right with the way he's been acting. Contrary to all the video evidence we've seen where he's just being a blatant prick. So yeah, this is all really good shit. Thumbs up segment. And that led us to Sami Zayn and Justin Gabriel, which was fine. It was an okay wrestling match. You know what the problem was? As soon as they shot that pre-tape with Gabriel and Kidd earlier, I knew what the finish was going to be. Which is funny because the track record with 99% of Sami Zayn matches is that you're expecting him to lose. Because more often than not, that's exactly what happens. So they're out there having this match. Tyson's at ringside scouting. William Regal at one point reflected back on Tyson's interview with Renee and said that he understands what marital problems look like. He's been dealing with it for 30 years with his 17 wives. Which I thought was great. In hindsight, I don't really know if the match here needed to go 14 minutes. The big WTF spot I noted was the deal toward the end where Gabriel gave Zayn a fisherman's buster right on his fucking knee. God, Zayn landed neck first over the guy's knee. Thought he was dead. I mean, they did about 50 near falls too many, but that's neither here nor there. You just kind of come to expect that with most modern WWE matches. Everybody's got a kick out of everything regardless of where they are in the pecking order. And they're doing back and forth stuff. And eventually Zayn traps Gabriel in the Koji clutch and gets into tap. I did like when Gabriel had Zayn on the mat. And he's going to tease that he's going to hit his 450 splash. Taking about 6 years to get in position. Because Regal's noting it as his finish. So the play-by-play commentator just goes, well, hurry up. Translation, quit stalling, you idiot. Hit the fucking move and win. He did not. And then after Zayn tapped him out, Kidd went over and jumped Zayn. And eventually Gabriel joined in on the attack. And then they both got run off by Neville afterwards. So yeah, they hot-shotted that Justin Gabriel heel turn. Again, though, you kind of saw that coming after they did that segment earlier in the show. And it's fine. You know, it keeps everybody linked together in the main event picture to some degree. It's a good little main event. Too long, but the wrestling was fine. Which is probably apropos for a lot of NXT main events, if we're being honest. This is kind of the era we're approaching, where the main event matches had to be stretched out like 15 minutes longer than necessary. Maybe I'm nitpicking, I don't know. I mean, it'd be one thing if Sammy were out there wrestling Tyson Kidd, a guy they've already established as a main event act. I don't know. Justin Gabriel. Yeah, he was an established name on the main roster to some level, but come on. The guy was a jobber for years after the Nexus debacle. We know the guy wasn't winning any world championships anytime soon. Like, you can't just have Sammy beat him in 8 minutes. Or 5. I don't know. But yeah, Tyson was kind of the star stud this week. Can't say the same for all the other material by and large. I mean, the girls continue to be a detriment to this program week after week. The abysmal acting, the fucking lame duck interview segments. I mean, every time I say that there's vast improvement in certain areas on the show, then I see segments like Charlotte and Sasha arguing in the locker room. And I'm reminded, yep, it is still Vince's regime. Kevin Dunn production up the ass. God-awful stuff. You can't win them all. That's what I say. You can't win them all. So we got a little bit of longevity out of this one. Give me a chance to expand on the Retro series a little bit. Hopefully people aren't too bummed about me canning the SmackDown reports. Next weekend, though, we will have the Money in the Bank special to recap. And then we'll have Retro Raw and Retro NXT to fill in the gaps. So we will get at least 3 segments around that time. We're going in blind, though. I have no idea who won any of the qualifying matches. I have no idea what the big featured attraction is. I presume the Bloodline are wrestling on that show, but maybe not. Maybe Cody has a title defense. Who knows? Stay tuned. I'll go in shocked. So thanks everybody for reporting here, and we'll catch you on Friday for the continuation of all the retro content. Actually, this coming Friday, we'll have the Great American Bash special we'll be covering, so Got some full-length pay-per-view coverage coming up here. So thanks everybody for tuning in, and I'll catch you all soon. Peace out.